Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Chris just informed you, today we'll give you the new developments in the Brittany Royal murder investigation. The Hawaii Police Department has concluded the active investigation into the death of Brittany-Jane Royal. We have determined that she was murdered by Boaz Johnson. On December 18, the evidence obtained in the investigation was presented to a grand jury. The grand jury indicted Boaz Johnson for second-degree murder. At the request of the police and the prosecutors, the indictment was sealed to give state and federal law enforcement agencies the opportunity to locate and arrest Mr. Johnson. The indictment has now been unsealed. Because the indictment was sealed, it would have been illegal for us to tell you that Boaz Johnson had been indicted and that a warrant had been issued for his arrest. Obviously, now we can do that. The body found hanging from a tree in Kalapana on January 2nd has been identified as Boaz Johnson. He was identified through DNA and dental records. A composition book found near Bo's body contained 3 handwritten pages. The writer identified himself as Boaz Johnson. He confessed to strangling Brittany while involved in a domestic dispute and to throwing her body into the ocean. He also indicated his intention to end his life. We sent the 3 pages to a forensic document examiner. The expert determined that the handwriting came from Boaz Johnson. An autopsy on his body revealed that the cause of death was asphyxia due to hanging, and the manner of death was suicide. The medical examiner ruled out foul play. Now that this investigation has essentially ended, we can release some additional information that our investigation uncovered, which we couldn't previously release. After Brittany's body was found, Boaz said in a telephone conversation with a friend that he and Brittany were in good health and on their way to Hilo. That phone call, along with DNA and other evidence at the crime scene, made Boaz a suspect in Brittany's murder. Throughout this investigation, we followed all leads, including investigation that was able to exclude other individuals as being responsible for this tragic death. This case is still officially open because detectives have minor follow-ups to conduct before the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney conducts a final review. This morning, we had the opportunity to speak to the Royal family and the Johnson family and provided them with the same information I just provided you. Brittany's father, Ted Royal, and her grandfather, Jerry Spahn, asked to be here when we met with the news media. I briefed them this morning. At the same time, I briefed Brittany's mother by telephone. Both Mr. Royal and Mr. Spahn have requested an opportunity to read a statement to you. However, before we hear from them, do you have any questions for me? Thank you very much.
I don't, is there gonna be follow-up after their statement? I don't wanna.
They will take questions after they will take questions after their statement.
Can I ask a couple of technical questions?
Sure.
Is it appropriate? Aloha, Ted Roy.
You're gonna ask them the questions?
First of all, I'm just saying aloha to them.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if it's determined like approximately when he may have ended his life, like how long he could, in between the time the crime was committed and now. Is there any indication in the composition notebook or through forensics?
Yes, the note indicates it was a couple days.
Okay. And I hope that I'm not sounding very insensitive, but I don't know if I have another opportunity to ask this question. There was a backpack on a trail, and it had his state ID and then a knife and rope according to the search warrants. And was this the same rope that was used for the hanging, or do we know?
The rope that was used, that Boaz used to strangle Brittany, and the rope that he used to hang himself was very similar.
Okay.
It's green 550 cord, is that correct?
I'm not sure on that detail.
You say very similar, it could have been from the same actual rope?
Same type of rope.
Same type of rope. Was there any indication that anybody else was involved in his suicide or any assistance rendered?
Absolutely no indication that anybody else was involved.
How about anything else besides the composition notebook in his possession or in the area where he was found?
There's no indication that anybody else was there, and there's really no indication that he was there for a long period of time.
Like any indication that he was trying to survive at all? Okay.
No.
Okay. So like no backpacks or tents or anything?
No. No food and things like of that sort.
How remote was the area? I mean, it took several months to find the body.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the scene, the camp. Okay, if you go down to the end of 130, the campsite is near the ocean, and where Mr. Johnson's body was found was approximately 1.5 miles to 2 miles away, in the Mauka or toward the mountain direction, in a little kipuka or grove of trees surrounded by lava.
Can you give us an indication of how he carried out that suicide?
He hung himself.
I mean, just stood on something, or?
He hung himself from a tree.
Oh,
You also mentioned something about forensic evidence that was pointing to him prior to that. Could you give us a sense of what that was?
DNA evidence that was recovered at the scene.
The scene of the tent, where the tent was?
Yes.
Okay.
Another pressing question that was never revealed in the search warrants, but I'd like to know, just to try to envision the scene, is was there a empty Jack Daniels bottle found in the campsite area?
I believe there was a bottle of liquor found. I do not know if it was a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Was it empty, or was there any alcohol in the?
I'm going to have to turn to Lieutenant Esteban that might have the answer to that question. Do you recall?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
If it was empty or not.
Correct.
Did he give any indication in the note what the domestic dispute was about?
No, not really. He just indicated that they were involved in an argument, and he did what he did. He strangled her.
Are you going to be releasing the contents of the journal?
Right now, that is recovered as evidence, and it's still an ongoing investigation. So the answer to your question is no, not right now. However, the investigation will eventually be closed.
Any indication as to how long that might take?
It might take up to several months. We will wrap up some follow-up investigations that we need to conduct, complete our reports, forward everything to the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney. They will review it and make a decision from there.
Can you give us a sense of what type of follow-up investigation is needed?
Things that were in the note that Mr. Johnson wrote, we'd like to follow up on those things.
Does it involve other people?
Not at all.
Did he express remorse in the note for what he had done?
He was very, very specific in what he did, and what his intent was to end his life.
He didn't express remorse?
No.
And you did say that you can't give us any indication of the type of the domestic, or what brought on the domestic incident that resulted in the death?
No, it was an argument. It was a domestic argument between the two of them, and he ended up strangling her.
He didn't elaborate in the journal?
No, he did not.
Was there any evidence at the campsite itself? I know that you guys have found evidence of dragging later on, but at the campsite itself, I remember Boaz's mother said that the campsite looked neat and it didn't look like a crime scene. Was there any evidence that an argument or a dispute or a physical confrontation may have taken place, or was there any evidence that something like that was cleaned up?
Yeah, you can answer.
Well, the scene itself comprised of the The scene itself, who asked that question? The scene itself appeared neat. There did not appear to be any signs of a struggle at the scene. I'm referring to the tent scene at the campsite. The location where you're referring to the drag marks in the tissue was located on the I guess that would be the north end of the campsite, north side of the
100 yards away, if I remember.
approximately, and the tissue trail actually led us towards the direction of the ocean.
There was a lot of speculation after the search warrant release that there may have been 2 tents. Can you confirm if there were 1 or 2 tents at the scene?
1 or 2. There were 2 scenes that was initially. There were 2 scenes that were actually processed. The first scene was more north of the actual campsite, where Brittany and Boaz were staying, and that scene and its contents of the tent was excluded. We did eventually locate the actual scene where both Brittany and Mr. Johnson were staying at. So to answer your question, there are 2 separate scenes. One is excluded. Both scenes had a tent each.
Did they both belong to either Brittany or Boaz?
The second scene,
Okay.
second tent.
So they
first
had
tent-
given away the tent or something, or?
The first tent was excluded as an independent individual.
Oh, okay, somebody else, not related, okay.
Until the body was identified, was Mr. Johnson at that point still considered a fugitive?
Yes.
Is there any indications that after the murder was committed, that Mr. Johnson left the area, or was it believed that he stayed in that area the entire time between the time of the murder occurred and the time of the suicide?
You know, anything is possible, but there's no indication that he had left Kalapana.
But he had made a phone call, you said.
Yes.
So the cell phone, I take it.
Correct.
Did he make any other phone calls or send any other texts, could you determine?
Yes, and there were some phone calls that were received, messages left, but that's it.
Did he call his family?
Yes, he did. On what date?
May 28th.
There's some telephone communication or some indication of some phone calls on May 27.
No indications that after the murder was committed that he contacted his family?
It's hard for us to determine exactly when the murder occurred.
We know that he talked, we've known from the search warrant that he spoke with Edward Elarth on the phone. Does the forensic evidence indicate that he called or spoke with anyone else Tuesday, May
28th?
May 28th or May 29th or May 30th?
There are some phone calls, but we're not going to identify exactly who was contacted.